Hello and welcome everyone. I hope you can all see and hear me. And welcome to What's New with Aiven for fourth quarter 2023, first quarter 2024. Where we'll be sharing with you our latest product updates and features in the platform and much more. I am your MC for today, Nick Rykar, one of the product marketers here at Aiven. And your speakers today will be a wonderful trio of product directors, Bob, Philip, and John, who will be running you through their respective areas. If we hop on to the next slide, take a look at the agenda for today. So we're going to give an overview of the Aiven platform as a whole, as well as some key highlights from past quarters. The bring your own cloud, as well as self-service deployment models that we have with AWS, some improved cost efficiency and scalability with tiered storage in the Aiven platform, as well as database and streaming system optimization with the power of AI and EverSQL by Aiven. We'll then take a look at what's coming up in the following quarters. Before we dive in, I have a quick question for everyone to get us teed up and familiar with the platform. What cloud vendor or vendors are you using today? All right, looks like a healthy mix of Amazon and Google Cloud on the call. Great, great. And with that, I'll be kicking things over to Bob, our first speaker, who's going to run us through the Aiven platform and specifically our BYOC or Bring Your Own Cloud offerings. Take it away, Bob.
Hey, Nick, thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Krygowski. I'm product director with Aiven, and I have responsibility for our platform. You'll talk to John. You'll hear from John and Philip as well. They are part of the broader platform, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what kind of the core enabling pieces are, which will give us a little bit of an intro into the Aiven platform itself. So next slide, please. Thank you. So again, you'll hear from John and Philip as we take a look at the overall Aiven platform. We have capabilities around data streaming, storage, and analysis. And the core platform that Aiven brings to the table really helps support and enable this. I think some of the key things that you'll see is that we are very much a multi-cloud platform that enables all of these open source services to be provided to any customer in over 150 to 170 regions around the world, but a lot of key enterprise capabilities that support developers who need a multitude of ways to develop on the Aiven platform, integrations for visibility, identity and access management, for governance, compliance options, and then a lot of capabilities for uptime, including 99.99% SLA. So a lot of capabilities that exist to enable enterprises, core developers to really take advantage of what the platform brings to the table. But today I want to talk a little bit about Bring Your Own Cloud. So if you go to the next slide, please. Well, sorry, a little bit more on this. A couple of benefits, a few benefits. I mentioned that we have simple and powerful provisioning. So if you think about the previous slide, having all of our integrations within our cloud, within our platform, allow you really to launch any of the 11 production-ready Aiven services in virtually any cloud in any time across over 150 regions. And you can deploy. We'll talk a little bit more about Bring Your Own Cloud. Can deploy into your own account. From a reliability perspective, we have a 99.99% SLA. We offer pre-integrated applications to observe, to maintain the observability into the platform. From a secure and compliance and resilience standpoint, we deploy in dedicated VMs, support end-to-end encryption across the platform. We have networking options, so think about your AWS private link as capabilities. And then core to our platform is our compliance with ISO, SOC 2, GDPR, PCI, and HIPAA. That can also be built into customer-specific capabilities. From an open source perspective, we offer, got a little bit ahead of ourselves there. Nope, back a little bit further, thank you. From an open source service perspective, you saw all of the applications and products that we support across the platform. Again, really what the platform allows you to do is to deploy any of those services using the tools that you as a developer use and are familiar with across any one of the clouds that we support. The Aiven platform allows us to offer predictable pricing. So for non-BYOC capabilities, we support, Aiven handles everything. Aiven handles infrastructure as well as the managed services. And I mentioned DevOps friendly. You saw that many of the tools, we said Terraform, Kubernetes operator, CLI, and our console, as well as our APIs. So it's a lot of capabilities for you as a developer, have the ability to bring your familiarity with the tools that you like to use. You can use those same tools on the Aiven platform. And now you can move forward. Thank you. So what I'd like to talk a little bit about today is bring your own cloud. I did this presentation a couple of quarters ago where we initially announced where we were stepping into self-service bring your own cloud. But just a brief step back, what is bring your own cloud? So bring your own cloud from our perspective is a deployment model where you can run Aiven services securely in your cloud account. Now, this is relatively new for Aiven. Today, what you might think of from Aiven if you're a customer or thinking about Aiven is today, Aiven handles all of the infrastructure. So we essentially deliver a solution. We provide all the infrastructure, compute, storage, networking, as well as the application itself and all the monitoring and all the things that I shared previously. With Bring Your Own Cloud, we do all of that, but we implement it in a way that allows you to do it in your cloud account. And prior to some of the announcements that we'll talk about today, if you wanted to run this run Aiven in your cloud account, it was more of a project, a development project, an implementation project, similar to what you might think a migration might look like, setting up a landing zone in your cloud account. So that could be a little bit lengthy, could be a little bit complex. What self-service tries to do is really simplify and accelerate the creation of those environments to then run Aiven services in. And so we started initially on AWS, and we now have a capability in early availability. We announced this right at the end of November of last year. And we're marching towards a general availability sometime during this quarter. And what this allows you to do, and we'll see in subsequent slides, is this allows you to, within an hour, for example, deploy a new landing zone for Aiven services, a new secure landing zone in your cloud account for Aiven services that we manage. The other announcement is that we are also supporting now OCI. So Oracle Cloud Infrastructure is now in limited availability. So we're able to do the same self-service approach, addressing customers who want to use OCI as their target cloud and provide still the same Aiven managed services, same SLA, same developer tools. So next slide, please. Want to dive a little bit deeper into self-service. So self-service, I mentioned that our goal is really to simplify and accelerate the time to value here. And so, we created this simplified environment where within your cloud account, we would deploy, within your cloud account, you give us a few inputs. So what is your cloud account? What is the region that you want to deploy into? Some basic networking information. And what self-service does is it builds a package, an infrastructure as code package that can be deployed through Terraform. You give Aiven a least privilege role that allows us to go in and build this environment within your cloud account. And I want to talk a little bit about some concepts here. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. So from a service isolation perspective, hopefully this comes across clearly, but what we do, what the automation and self-service really brings you is within that cloud region, we create a VPC, or in GCP if we built it manually, or in Azure if we built it manually, your VPC analogies. And within that availability zone, we create a couple of subnets. One where the Aiven platform is essentially brought into your cloud environment. It's a bastion host environment where we can support all of our application deployment, all of our updates, all of our maintenance, all of our monitoring. And then we support a private subnet where we create this environment where Aiven workloads can be deployed. Next slide, please. And within the management piece, I mentioned earlier that we have the Aiven platform is essentially brought into this environment. So we've extended this where we can deploy our bastion host within a public subnet, and that's where we can deploy all of our monitoring, all of our resource updates. We can manage, we can deploy new images. This is where Aiven can manage the services on your behalf. And the read-only access that you get, the least privileged role access that you give us allows us to then create resources, to take down resources, deploy new stuff, allows us to upgrade as part of the management and monitoring process. So next slide, please. And then, your application. This is where your application really comes into play. So you would create, you would have a VPC or a secure environment for your application, and this is where you would connect it to the Aiven workload node in a private subnet. So this is where your application stays isolated. You can operate that application as one continuous solution for yourself. So next slide, please. And so thinking about what's important here, I know I didn't do it probably complete justice in the few minutes that I have, but I did want to share a few pieces. So this is where you can really, what's great about Bring Your Own Cloud is that you can really leverage your existing network security, compliance, and governance mechanisms within a Bring Your Own Cloud model. So we're specifying a few security groups, settings, there's some IP addressing capabilities. We do need some controls and roles to be able to come in and manage, but by and large, you would allow us to, by selecting Bring Your Own Cloud, you allow Aiven to come in as a trusted partner to work on your behalf. The nice thing is customers who have deployed Bring Your Own Cloud can use any negotiated discount that they have to reduce their infrastructure cost. So a key difference between a standard Aiven service and a Bring Your Own Cloud is that in a standard Aiven service, Aiven pays for everything. In a Bring Your Own Cloud, customers pay the infrastructure cost. And if they have a negotiated discount with a cloud provider, they can take advantage of that discount and reduce their overall cost, retire their contractual commitments faster. And again, instead of perhaps a protracted custom development, by doing this self-service, you are in control of how quickly you deploy this. And we believe this can really accelerate the time to value. What we've seen is that you can go from as much as 4 weeks on the outside case to as little as an hour. So if you have all the information, you've done the work ahead of time to understand your CIDR blocks, network, your controls, have approval from your security teams. This has been as little as an hour where you have an environment ready for Aiven services. One of the key questions that we get from pricing and availability is, what is the price? Well, we have pricing available now that is a global price per service and plan. What we really need to do is we invite you to talk to Aiven Sales, and what they will do is help you to think through, based on your workload, are you in a position to take advantage of Bring Your Own Cloud? And then the pricing will then make a lot more sense to you. You may not for example, have a contractual discount that allows you to save as much as you might want. And a deal with Aiven in our standard plan might make more sense. So this is really a conversation, a consultation with Aiven sales to really customize pricing and services that you need to your circumstances. And as I mentioned, in this model, you pay the cloud provider directly for infrastructure, and you pay Aiven a predictable monthly service fee per service. As I mentioned, we're available, this service is available for self-service on AWS and OCI, and then custom projects, custom requirements are still available for all of the cloud providers. So next slide, please. All right, and then I think I'm gonna hand it over to Philip to talk. Oh, Nick.
Yeah.
Nick, I will hand it over to you.
I'm gonna sneak my way back in because I have another question for everybody before we kick off the next section. So what Aiven services are you using today? We have some of our most popular services there, or other if you're using things like Aiven for ClickHouse, Aiven for Grafana, etc. Or Aiven for Flink. It's always better when you have 3 examples. There you go. All right. A pretty solid spread, pretty much in keeping with what I've seen out in the wild. A lot of Kafka and Postgres users, some MySQL and OpenSearch in the mix. Excellent. So for our next section, as Bob mentioned, we're going to be handing things over to Philip, who's going to take us on a tour of tiered storage on the Aiven platform. Take it away, Philip.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for the introduction. Hi, very nice to be here. My name is Filip. I'm the director for data streaming at Aiven. So today we will talk about a topic which I'm very, very passionate about. It's tiered storage. It may not seem like a topic to be very passionate about, but the separation of compute and storage is very real in our industry. So let's dive right into the agenda. I will discuss what Kafka and ClickHouse are first to set the stage for us. Then we will talk about why scaling storage is a problem while introducing tiered storage and what are its use cases. And by the way, before I move on, we recently announced early access for both at Aiven, so you will be able to try them out after my presentation. So let's start with Kafka. Kafka doesn't really need an introduction, right? It's the most popular open source project, and what we need to know about it, until now, it didn't have tiered storage. Almost 14 years after AWS S3 was introduced. It's the most popular data streaming platform and the best of breed real-time data transport for event-driven architectures. On the next slide, I actually have ClickHouse. And it is really, really interesting. It's extremely high performance column-oriented SQL database for online analytical processing. I hope I spelled it correctly, or simply put, all up. It's scary fast, and we have seen some wild use cases recently with millions and billions of events per second. Even though not as mature as Kafka, ClickHouse future looks very bright indeed, and at Aiven we discover more about what it can do every day. But I'm sure also John will tell us about the latest developments shortly after my presentation. So let's start on the next slide with the commonality. There is really something common between Kafka and ClickHouse in general. It's really actually the storage, and it's almost never enough. So if we go to the next slide, please. Let's start with some storage basics. Both Kafka and ClickHouse, as I already mentioned, are distributed systems. This means that the service is provided by a set of nodes. Traditionally, the storage was pretty much co-located, basically the red rectangle here. You have a co-located storage in each node. But this really brings a few problems, I would say, for usage, those services at scale, and especially in the cloud context of nowadays. So my next slide, I actually have problem number 1. It's really about sizing. The first problem we hit is that there is only a finite amount of storage we can add to a certain machine. And this limits the overall storage capacity of the cluster. I can speak for Kafka that when we start hitting 15 terabytes or so, even less actually in certain cases per node, we see diminishing returns on adding the disk and actually reduced performance in certain cases. You can think of it as a diminishing rate of returns. If we need more storage in those cases, at a certain point, we would need to add more nodes. And I think you can already see the problem. Therefore, storage can't really scale independently. We need to add unnecessary compute, even though we don't need it because we're just limited by it. Problem 2 is about elasticity. On the next slide. And this actually brings us to the second element of our puzzle. Every time we add or remove a node from the cluster, part of the data is moved from the old to the new nodes to share the load equally. If the whole data set is stored locally, we need to rebalance a huge volume of data every time, making the process slow, error prone, and also in many cases, actually, it creates a noticeable overhead to the cluster. At Aiven, we have invested a lot into making those upgrades seamless, but still the very low level architecture of Kafka demands us to do this. And problem number 3 is really about fault tolerance. In a case where we have a node failure, for example, in any of the systems, whether this is a Kafka or ClickHouse, and usually under a huge load, right, an error might cause an unwanted rebalance and therefore an additional load in the cluster and noticeable performance degradation. So as you can see, these issues are compounding issues, and without the separation of compute and storage, we have impact on elasticity, and without elasticity, we have performance degradation and less control during node failure. There is also another angle which I want you to think about these systems and what's hampering them. It's really about the costs. It's simple. To avoid scaling and rebalancing the clusters, users sometimes just over provision the nodes to reduce their, I call it internally, operator anxiety. If we can move actually to the next slide now to talk a bit about the solution. So what's the solution, right? Well, after years of running Kafka, can we move to the next slide? Sorry. Thank you. After years of running Kafka in production, we have vast amounts of evidence that consumers of those systems primarily use fresh data unless there is a specific historical reprocessing which is already accounted for. This graph is very powerful because it's usually showing the relationship between how actually data really is read when it is produced, and usually there is a very close one-on-one relationship, meaning that the moment data is produced on any given cluster, it is also consumed. It rarely actually needs to be written to the disk to wait for a consumer to catch up to it. Therefore, it is very important when designing the workloads in both Kafka and ClickHouse to understand your data access patterns. Is it about consuming as quickly as possible? Is there reprocessing happening? How much old data my ClickHouse queries are going to need, for example? These are all needed to take full advantage of the underlying storage capabilities. It is business as usual for system operators. I don't think this is some new graph for whoever has been running Kafka at scale. On the next slide, we'll be talking actually what the community set out to do. Basically, they set out to divide the storage and escape the limitations I just mentioned, right? Now, suddenly you have new capability out of the box, which provides a very interesting trade-off for your data access patterns. If you have to consume as quickly as possible, on Kafka, you probably will be using more the local disk, right? Because, yeah, Kafka will persist the data, but you will be more than happily already consume the data. But what if you use Kafka as your source of truth or archival purposes or for a longer retention? With a remote disk, for example, which is on the right-hand side of the scale here, you can lean into, for example, object storage like S3, which is extremely cost-effective and reliable, while you free your local disks and remove the need to constantly rebalance this historical data. It's really best of both worlds. So if you go on the left, you go for low latency and high availability. If you want to go on the right-hand side for older data, for less fresh data, you actually take advantage of the cost benefits and the durability of the data. So just think of your use cases while thinking about Kafka, and I want you to really rethink them again. So if we are able to attach external storage to each node, it doesn't need to contain all the data. And this is, if you remember my first picture, my first diagram, it is our same 3-node cluster, right? But it is already offering a very, very interesting capability out of the box. We can scale storage pretty much independently and without real limits, because yes, we have the remote storage here, but it can very much be completely infinite, and it's very much decoupled from the 3-node cluster, which I already mentioned. So the criticality of a node is much smaller since a limited amount of data is stored locally. So you can think of tier storage as a reliable mechanism to really actually decouple and de-risk your clusters at scale. Moreover, if you implement it correctly, the access pattern, which I already mentioned, like the trade-off is between fresh and like historical data, the access patterns for those clients doing read and write don't really change, making tier storage really transparent for client applications with zero impact if tuned correctly. I just want to, on the next slide, dive a little bit deeper into the trade-off. I mentioned already there is a trade-off in latency, there is a trade-off of that data access patterns and how you can tune them. So the real trade-off here is performance. Accessing data from local storage is way faster than remote storage. That's just a fact of life, right? You get way less milliseconds there. And it's really about latency trade-offs in this case. Calling the object store always introduces more latency into the system. But if you're concerned about sub-millisecond performance, just use the local disk. It's really so easy. So as I already hinted in the beginning, you don't really need to change anything. Just keep your workload on a local disk as Kafka is designed and happily stream. On the next slide, we need to remember that we are serving a large percentage of reads from local storage only. So if I twist a little bit here the overall angle, if we think about only reads on the clusters, these reads will only hit fast storage and will not have any performance impact, right? So think of your use case, you just keep your stuff on the local disk, you will not feel anything because nothing actually changed. Reads that need to access all data, and if they're aka tiered, right, or in an object or a remote storage, usually are going to query over a large amount of data. Therefore, the impact of accessing remote storage is visible, but less of a concern if accounted for. That's why I asked you in the beginning, rethink your use cases. Usually when you're querying for historical data, you don't really need sub-millisecond latencies. You can actually afford to relax a bit the requirements there. On the next slide, we actually, if we go really, really low here, we even can have the capability to exactly define what is kept in the local storage versus the remote, making it configurable by table, by topic, use case, and allowing us with, fine-grained controls over the trade-off between latency and disk. And I just want to make sure that this is very clear. We made sure that our Kafka and ClickHouse work first with S3, GCP, and Blob. These are the benchmarks in Object Store. Probably there will be more in the future. We're already looking in additional support, but we are already launching with the best of breed capability out of the box. So on the next slide, I just want to paint a little bit the picture. This is how it looks like, whether this is ClickHouse, whether this is Kafka, on a storage view, on low level view, this is how really tier storage really looks like. And let's take an example on S3. We're able to obtain an infinitely scalable secondary storage for both Kafka and ClickHouse, serving our purposes pretty much seamlessly. Aiven is doing the heavy work. We will be tuning your workloads. We will making sure that your tiering goes as uninterrupted as possible. You will just focus on your business cases. So by combining the best of open source with the best of the cloud technologies, we can deliver on streaming and analytics use cases with solution that has completely infinite storage, as I already mentioned, better scalability, meaning that full independence of storage capabilities, no cap to the maximum amount of local storage per node. You may choose that you don't really need the compute, so you can actually make the trade-off yourself. Better and faster elasticity, as I already mentioned. Only local data needs to be transferred when nodes are added or removed from the cluster, making basically all the rebalances, the different reconfigurations of the cluster much, much lighter, faster, better, more resilient. And last but not least, of course, we are improving the availability of the cluster. Less data is stored locally, as I mentioned, making the loss of a node less of a problem. It's that simple. Before I conclude, I just want to hop on a few use cases just to paint the picture for us in the next slide. If we can, yeah, exactly. So the obvious use case, right? The most tangible one is that basically we're making Kafka infinite. Internally, we're calling it, for example, in infinite Kafka. But what this really means, it's infinite data retention on Kafka. So you can use your cluster to store data almost infinitely, with no penalties on the cluster whatsoever, and you can leverage S3 directly into your service. No need for example, object store connector if you want to retain longer term data, or if you want to archive data, etc., because everything just works with the Kafka API. Last but next is trusted log of all activities. Yes, this very much actually feeds back to the infinite data retention. You can now use Kafka as the trusted source of truth. A trusted log for audit purposes or for some kind of traceability, this is completely unlocked because you don't really need to care about the size of your topic and how it actually affects the rest of the cluster. Long-range analytics, this is more on the ClickHouse side. I'm sure John will touch upon at more depth later, but really it's more data, more context, being able to work with, instead of 1 hour of context, you can work with days or months or years of context, making business decision making, analytics much more richer and much more capable. And last but not least, as I said, it's not really a use case, but it's very, very cost efficient. We have tracked in certain use cases, you can achieve, when there is a disk heavy use case, you can achieve up to 10 times cost reduction at scale, which is extremely welcomed into our domain. Having said that, I want to hand over now to Nick, because I guess he has another very interesting question to ask.
Indeed, thanks, Philip. Yeah, so last question for the section, and call out that at the end we will have time for you to ask some questions of your own. So feel free to hop into the questions widget if you have anything you'd like to ask us. But for now, what we're asking you is how important AI is to your future growth. Whether it's something you already have some processes rolling, something that you're hoping to implement in the near future, or something that you just don't consider as a strategic initiative at present for your business. All right, looks like it is a topic of interest to just about everybody who are in various stages of investigation and implementation. And as you might guess, it segues into our next topic, where John is going to run us through some system optimization and the power of AI and EverSQL by Aiven. Go ahead and enjoy, John.
Cheers. Thank you very much, Nick. And also thanks, Bob and Philip. I'll try and tease through some of the themes you had into the areas of interest here. But thanks also for answering that questionnaire. The responses you gave are very match very closely what we're hearing from a lot of our customers. We understand how transformative AI is. We understand that we need to deliver value via AI closest to where we currently add value for our customers. And Aiven is no different. And hopefully in the next few slides, you'll hear me talk through that. Just to double back to kind of back Philip up there, I work in the database engines domain, so that covers everything data-wise from the NoSQL to analytics databases such as ClickHouse. ClickHouse is a bit of a superpower when it comes to analytics. As highlighted, it has that native ability to use tiered storage, which is driving massive value. But just to share an internal use case and a customer use case with you, it's actually very good at compression out the box. Like with no other changes, it's super good at compressing data. So we've seen 27 terabyte MySQL databases compressed down to 400 gig on a ClickHouse instance, and the analytics workload running 10 times faster than it did there. So there's so many opportunities there. And if you hear us today talking about any open source database engines that you aren't familiar with, or you don't see one that you recognize, please take the time to go to aiven.io and check out all the services we have. We're just going to talk about a few here in this brief webinar, but we have an awful lot more to offer you. So if we're likely to have an open source service that you're familiar with capabilities that you can benefit from. So please take the time to go over there. Also, all the things we're talking about in terms of what's coming and what's coming next, a lot of those ideas have come from you, our customers. So if you've got time, point yourselves over at ideas.aiven.io and make sure you're getting us your ideas of what you'd like to see in the product and what you'd like to have us deliver for you. We really are customer focused here, so our ability to solve your problems requires you telling us your problems. So please tell us a bit more. Right. Next slide, please. I am personally extremely excited, and we're working behind the scenes with the eversql.com team for a while now, and very proud to announce that Aiven and eversql are now part of the same family. Anyone not familiar with eversql, it's a database optimization tool that will optimize queries and indexes. You can go and check out eversql.com now. What we're going to be doing in the next slide is talking about how this will now appear in the Aiven console, delivering value for our customers. So initially focused on PG, but expanding beyond that. What we're going to be able to do is monitor your query and your workload in real time, provide you notifications where that's getting slow. So you can decide how you cut this. You can look at the top 10 slowest. You'll then be able to have a look at that query, see what's going on. There will be an optimize button over time, which will allow you to, we will provide you a recommendation on a better query. You can either automatically apply that change, or you're going to be able to take and copy and paste it and put it in yourself. This is really exciting because we know, and we've been hearing from our customers for a long time, the value of a managed service like ours is we take away all the pain of managing database engines. Like, we're brilliant at that. What that allows you to do is grow in scale as a customer, so you can be running footprints of hundreds of databases all at the same time. The new challenge that brings you is trying to optimize and make sure those things are running effectively and cost effectively is really difficult just because of the scale. So adding this to the platform is going to be a real bonus, because you'll be able to quickly get insights into every database you've got running and actionable changes that you can make to make things run faster. Initially, we're going to be focusing on queries and indexes. The reason we're going to do this is because those will give you the biggest bang for your buck, and it will make sure you get the most cost effective. Now, price performance is a spectrum. Depending on where you are on it as a customer, you can achieve different things by improving your performance. So this will be two areas. One, you can optimize to make sure that you're being more performant within the amount you're spending, so you'll get more for the same amount of resources or size of instance, or you can optimize your performance so that you can scale down, saving you money and making sure you're getting doing the most for the planet, because the less resources we use, the greener we are. So it's all good stuff. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, over time you'll be able to do this with one click. We will hope at some point to have the system effectively have automatic optimization, so you don't have to think about it, but we always are keen to make sure that you're in control of your data and what you do with it. So we're going to make sure that we expose it. Alongside any of the changes we suggest, there'll be education as to why these things are important, so that you can understand and improve your awareness going forward. You don't always have to rely on this. We'll hopefully be teaching you as well. Once you've made a change, we're going to be able to allow you to see that change, so you can see how much value it's added or not, both in the resources you consume and the performance of the queries. Initially, it'll be deployed on Postgres. We're going to roll it out to MySQL very quickly afterwards. But what we're really excited about is being able to bring the techniques of optimization, not just of the queries and the workloads, but the settings and the configs to other services as well. So Kafka and OpenSearch, we're really keen to make sure that when you come to Aiven, you use those services on our platform, you're going to get added value, because you know, regardless of your level of knowledge of those services, you're going to be getting the most performant and optimized version you can. The load this will take off in terms of need for training and knowledge your side will be immense, and we really hope that will keep you happy and with us for a long time. We're going to continue to evolve this. We know that making things optimal for our customers is key for our success. So yeah, I'm really excited about this one. So this is an AI machine learning backed service. So we're going to be looking at all the data that's running. We manage thousands and thousands and thousands of instances. We're using all that data and that machine learning on non-customer specific information to drive these optimizations. So we know how to manage Kafka, OpenSearch, PG, MySQL, and we'll leverage that knowledge via machine learning algorithms to deliver this AI eversql experience. But that's not the only thing customers want to do in terms of AI. As you saw at the very top in the questioning, you're trying to build AI solutions. We understand that and we hear that. The great thing is, if we go to the next slide, we have services that fundamentally deliver the capabilities you need to deliver the AI for your customers in technologies that you're familiar with. So that's the great value of the open source. We've got all these great projects, well active, very active communities, very innovative communities, and they are keen to bring the very best in vector capabilities to those engines alongside some other capabilities to make sure that you can build on them. And you can get them all in Aiven. So look, we've got 3 here, OpenSearch, Postgres, and ClickHouse. I'll start from the right. As I mentioned, ClickHouse is just blazingly fast. So in terms of using it as a vector database, if you're familiar with it, you don't need a separate vector database. Moving to the left, Postgres, PG Vector is one of the most widely used vector engines that allows you to carry out all the capabilities that you can with a dedicated vector database. The advantage of, sorry, and I'll go to the left, same again. Although OpenSearch is actually taking a bit further, they are building in some fairly advanced AI capabilities, including possibly hosting of LLMs within an OpenSearch instance. So there's really strong AI focus in OpenSearch in the community going forward. We're really excited about that. We've got a lot of committers internally, and we're really keen and a key part of driving that community. What's key here is that these are arriving in technologies you and your team already know. You don't need to go and learn a new database. You don't need to go and work differently. You can just get these capabilities in the things that your team are already using and gain the value really easily. And that's a massive bonus. Next slide, please. So this is on the right-hand side, you're looking at an image of some of the capabilities that are already either already in or planned for OpenSearch specifically, but they very much resonate through all of the databases I've mentioned on the left-hand side. So I won't go through them all, but you're looking at more advanced things like pattern matching and deduplication. That can be used in nearly any application. Generative AI agents based on some LLM either hosted in another service or in the future in OpenSearch, really happy with that. But then more of the basic nearest neighbor searches and some of the capabilities that you need around vectors. I'm not going to go into what a vector is. It's just a numeric representation of any piece of data, and nearest neighbor just does a comparison against those things. The reason they're so useful for such large scale is computers talk in numbers, and that's very easy for them. So we've got loads of capabilities in OpenSearch. ClickHouse is natively powerful when it comes to vectors. PG Vector is the extension of choice in the wider ecosystem for Postgres, Postgres being the most popular database for developers, which is great. Very proud as well, we were able to get the PG Vector plugin, the new version out 72 hours after it went live, which I'm really pleased about. And Cassandra 5, again, really active community. We're really, we've got committers of that community in our company. We're proud to say that. They're developing some really nice cutting edge AI capabilities. We're really excited about 5.0. It'll be here at the end of the year. Keen to get loads of feedback and input on that. So exciting times in the database engines when it comes to AI. And that was it from me. Nick, back over to you.
Right on. And before we close things out with Q&A, we're going to do a quick round robin of our stalwart product owners here to give us a little preview of what's coming up in the near future. So Bob, why don't you kick things off?
Awesome, thanks, Nick. Okay, for the platform, so we're going to continue with the theme I mentioned earlier about bring your own cloud and accelerating time to value. We expect to get to GA with our self-service version of Bring Your Own Cloud for AWS. And we have GCP and Azure queued up as well. So extending the reach, delivering additional value to customers across the major cloud providers that we support. John teased it up a little bit, this next item around delivering enterprise value. We have many of our customers are enterprise customers who want additional enterprise security and resilience and governance, and you saw performance capabilities through EverSQL. We will be announcing that, rolling that into something we call Pro Platform. So this is just a tease, but more of a targeted enterprise set of services capabilities that are platform oriented for our enterprise customers. We are also focusing on scalability. We've been focused on it for a while, and we expect in this quarter to provide disk auto scaling capabilities. So think of it as a way to have a data-driven way to scale up your disk based on your actual consumption needs. So that's been a hotly requested item, and we're happy to be able to deliver it this quarter. We'll be continuing to strengthen our organizational governance capabilities. You've seen in the past year we've delivered more and more around organizations, and that is a large concept around enabling customers to govern the use of Aiven based on who their users are. Part of this includes now application users, or will include application users, which is more of a programmatic user, so machine-to-machine user versus an individual named user. And so this is a way, so this user will never be able to address, use our console. It's not a human user, and it's a way for APIs to interact directly with the Aiven system as a named user. So we'll be focusing on that this quarter, and then we're going to continue to simplify what it means within our billing domain. So we want to make it easier for you to use your marketplace capabilities. And so we're thinking of this as use AWS, GCP, Azure Marketplace as a payment mechanism. And essentially what that does is simplify what it means to make your payments. And then deploying different options. So I teased about OCI. We may be able to use additional cloud providers in the future to expand the reach of our services, which gives you more choice and options for deployment, options for greater resiliency. So that is what we're working on this quarter, and potentially some for next quarter as well. So I will hand it over, I think, to Filip next.
Thanks, John. Really appreciate it. Before I actually articulate a bit on our streaming roadmap, I just want to say that business happens in real time. And actually streaming is the paradigm to support this. And our roadmap at Aiven is not only foundational, but also aligned with business, and especially on the enterprise side of things. So they, roll the ball forward to what already Bob mentioned on the enterprise readiness, and start with this. We're making Kafka infinite, right? It's really all what tier storage is about, making sure that we have elastic, reliable, infinite Kafka, which can serve much more versatile use cases. We see already streaming emerging from a niche product into the mainstream, and we're very, very excited. So infinite Kafka based on tier storage is something which will basically take the next natural step in this direction. The next one is really custom code for our Apache Flink stream processing products, and for our Kafka Connect. What this means is basically we from our conversations with customers, understanding the pains of the market, understanding the opportunities, we have observed that the need for a way to bring your own connector, to bring your own integration. Not all sizes fit, basically. So you need to make sure that you have this capability where our customers bring their own applications, bring their own connectors to our streaming environments, and integrate them seamlessly. So we'll be leading the move here with enabling custom jar applications, first for our Flink product, and which is already in limited availability, and we'll be transitioning and talking more for our early availability soon after, and looking towards the middle of the year for a similar capability for custom connectors on Apache Kafka, so that you can just bring your integration. I will move next to efficient streaming. This is something which is very fundamental and important for Kafka in general, for the ecosystem, and ensuring that Kafka can survive the next 10 years plus in its journey into the cloud. KRaft essentially removes the dependency to another adjacent system, which we need to basically run to ensure that the Kafka cluster survives. It's called Zookeeper. And basically KRaft ready clusters are these new streamlined clusters without this dependency built in, making Kafka, again, more elastic, more lightweight, easier to manage, especially in those new cloud environments for which actually Kafka wasn't built for. But this is one of the most notable evolutions, and we are working very hard in Aiven to ensure we can also decouple ourselves from this redundant dependency. Last but not least is really on governance. And when I mean when I say governance, I really mean Kafka experience. Kafka experience equals really Kafka governance. Strong experience means strong governance. We have been investing a lot over the last years with acquisition of Claw and subsequent changes to our stream catalog and additional tooling to make sure that streaming governance is really powerful and is becoming what it's always needed to serve: a developer-first interface, a self-service for our developers, for our users, in a very safe, very self-reliant manner. So going forward, we will be actually turbocharging our streaming catalog with self-service capabilities, with the ability to browse, self-service, subscribe, choose data, reuse data instead of creating new streams. Overall, really remodeling our user experience to really meet where our customers are. So yeah, with that said, I think it's time to hand over to John.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Filip. Next slide, please. Worth highlighting before I go into my roadmap, not as a defensive stance, but we've only got 3 or 4 bits on this roadmap, but I want to highlight that in an ongoing fashion, the team, all the services that run the platform are benefiting from the hardening and the enterprise readiness and all the enterprise level features that are developed by Bob's team, but also individually for any one of the services. So we are continually evolving the platform to meet the needs of our enterprises. What you see here is just a snapshot. And if you want to see more details about the wider roadmap, please head over to ideas.aiven.io. We'll make sure we get you that link. So within the data engines domain, 2 massive things unrelated specifically to the topics we discussed earlier. We're launching 2 brand new services. So you're going to have Aiven for Metrics powered by Thanos. This is really exciting. We're really happy to bring this this product to market. It's the first metrics as a service powered by Thanos. Thanos being a Prometheus compatible open source project we're really proud to help champion, and we've got a committer in the org already. Really excited about that. I think they're going to be running alongside KubeCon, so you should be able to see more there. Please head along. And also in demand to our enterprise need, we're partnering to deliver high scale Redis with and this is a real massive opportunity for our customers. We've heard for an extended period of time that the open source, open core version of Redis has a lot of limitations. And we acknowledge that, and that's why we're really going to be excited about getting these larger scale Redis use cases taken care of for our customers. So those 2 things coming in the first 1 to 2 quarters. I've got the AI optimizations. We talked about that earlier on, but it's here because it's an ongoing effort. This isn't a one and done. This is a continual evolution of an AI-powered data platform. You're going to see more and more places day to day where you're interacting with the console, where you're interacting with your services, where we're going to make things smarter, more insightful. You're going to get information to take action and make decisions to make sure you're getting the most out of the Aiven experience, and we're really proud of that. As also mentioned before, tiered storage for ClickHouse. It's in early availability. Things are going really well. You'll see that roll out in the very near I think in the next few weeks. But we're really excited about that one because it does deliver. And just quickly, we use this internally now, and we've been able to extend the retention period for some of our logs fundamentally just because of the ClickHouse compression and how it handles it. And in doing so, we've saved a load of money. So we're really going to be getting some blogs out, helping you understand how you can use it, and making sure that everyone gets the most out of tiered storage for ClickHouse. So those are a few of the things. And remember, ideas.aiven.io if you want to get engaged with our roadmap and tell us what you're thinking and what you need. Over to you, Nick.
Right on. Thanks, everyone. And indeed, I can confirm as the PMM in charge of the forthcoming metrics launch that there will be an Aiven presence at KubeCon EU next month. It will also be, since Thanos is a CNCF project, they're going to have the first ThanoCon as a co-located event, I think on the Tuesday of that conference. So definitely look for us there. I'm sure we'll have more information about that forthcoming solution at that point. This is the time for you, though. Any questions that you have, feel free to pop into the questions widget. And I guess sort of right off of that, there's where can folks reach out if they would like to learn more about the Aiven roadmap?
Again, that was ideas.aiven.io. Yeah, and look, I want to highlight it's not just I've worked in companies where the public-facing ideas collection was a graveyard that went nowhere. That's not the case here at Aiven. We fundamentally use the input that comes in and the prioritization and the priority that our customers give us via ideas.aiven.io as part of our planning. So what we get asked for is what we deliver because we know it's the most important thing. So please do contribute there. We do listen and we'd love to hear from you.
Right on. All right.
I think there is a question about tier storage general availability, Nick. I'll be very quick on this one. It's a great question because I just walked out of a meeting earlier about planning the GA. We are very much looking forward for Kafka tier storage to be production ready in the middle of March, just in time for, of course, for Kafka Summit, so that we can discuss with our customers, with our prospects, what they think about it, to test it, to discuss their use cases. It's really, really important. I just want to stress it once again. This is a paradigm shift. This is not a feature. It's a product, tier storage in general. The separation of compute and storage is something bigger than a quarter. It's a fundamental shift in how we actually deliver and consume streaming. So it will be a very long journey, but we look to get production ready as quickly as possible. That's my answer.
Right on. Okay. And if there are no other questions, we're near the top of the hour. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. It has been fun, and definitely stay tuned for some more What's New at Aiven's coming at you in the future.